Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to be going over the army update that happened a little bit ago. I think it was like a month ago. And then I'll also be going over the rules changes that happened, and specifically how these changes affect military orders. Um, as you can see, I have a slideshow now. I'm upgrading. Yeah. Anyway, let's get into it. So the military orders changes. So first off, we have the Army update that occurred on 03/18/2025. Apologies for the format to my European listeners. Um, but yeah, so there were a couple of notable changes to MO that have kind of, I think they have bigger consequences than what you would maybe think on a first glance. So the first one we have here is Mendoza got 6-2 move. That was an excellent change. I still think he is lacking stealth, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But no, it's definitely a good direction that CB is taking this particular profile. Um, on top of that, just seeing that they know of the weaknesses of certain units and that they need to be addressed is yeah, that's a really good thing, honestly. Um, Not too much else to talk about here other than the fact that being able to 6-2 move is really nice for Mendoza just because he is he's more of a solo piece. And so having the ability to move 6 inches and then dodge, and I think he's on like a +2 inches to dodge, maybe something like that. And he dodges on like 16, so it's all this jazz. So yeah, it just makes him a lot more mobile and yeah, great change overall. The next one was DeFerson getting 6-2 move as well, and also a dodge +1 inch. Excellent change. I think DeFerson was already a pretty solid character, but I think he is definitely a lot better, at least in my eyes, just because of this change. So why does movement matter so much on DeFerson? Well, I think a big reason why it matters is because he's a hacker. And hackers particularly benefit from having a larger movement skill because it means that there are points in your game where you're not going to be like stifled by a 4-4 move, specifically when trying to get into a repeater range or trying to like hack somebody offensively. Because I've noticed a lot of times, at least like in N4 and beginning of N5, when I was playing Deferson, the 4-4 move meant that there were a couple of instances where I would move 4 inches and I was not quite in repeater range, and I'd kind of have to like waste my second short skill, um, because I'd have to start a new order to be able to then actually be able to move into repeater range. And yeah, but having the 6-2 move is really great because it reduces the likelihood of you having to waste short skill on like idling or just waiting to get into repeater range. So that's really nice. And also he's a gunfighter, so it's kind of the same thing there. It reduces the likelihood that you're gonna have to waste an order idling before you get into line of fire of a unit that you want to shoot. And then the dodge +1 inch. It's not like anything that's game breaking, but it's just nice to have. The next addition was a Trinitarian KHD profile. Um, I don't really think like Trinitarians needed more things, but I'll take it. It's a very interesting profile. I haven't had the opportunity to test it out yet, but I think just the fact that it's there is nice. It means that your opponent has to think about more things, possibly killing their hackers in the midfield. And then on top of that, I think probably the best aspect of the Trinitarian KHD is the fact that it gives you yet another means to deal with enemy hackers. And I have touched on this briefly, but hacking feels rather strong against military orders, especially because we have a lot of heavy infantry, and so having more capability to deal with hackers, especially offensively with the KHD, is really nice. And then finally, Joan got the number 2 skill. Again, not something that was necessarily needed, but definitely, uh, yeah, a great addition, I guess. Um, I would say that I don't really see a use case for it, but literally the other day I was playing against my friend Hackney, and I used a Santiago. So I had a Harris team with Joan, a Hospitaller, and a Santiago. The Santiago was my Harris team leader, and he ended up dying on reactive turn. But Joan has number two, so the fire team reformed around her, and then it became a duo with the Hospitaller Doctor and Joan. So there you go. Already a use case for this. So it's kind of funny that it came into play there, but yeah, overall great addition. The next rules update that happened was yesterday and today, so 0434, sorry, 043 and then 044 2025. So yeah, this was a good rules update. They nerfed a lot of things, they buffed some other things, so overall pretty great. Um, so first here we have super jump nerf. This affects mainly the Seraphs. Not that it's really a big deal. I've used the Seraphs a couple of times, and honestly, I was never really using both super jump skills to like run across the table. It was usually I would use one and then take a gunfight and then do the same thing over and over again. So the fact that the Seraphs lost the second super jump skill is not like a huge nerf. And I would also say like it's just an overall good change because it a lot of people will like null deploy to keep their units from just automatically getting crumped by a tag. And it's a good change because it means like units like Norkius can't just move 12 inches every order and just totally speed towards your deployment zone. So honestly, super great change. Yeah, very happy to see this. The second one was a C plus buff, so climbing plus was pretty bad at the beginning of N5, but after this change, it kind of reverted it to the way it was in N4, which is honestly excellent because in N4 it was a good skill. I didn't really think it was that overpowered, and I don't think it's overpowered now. And on top of that, it actually means that C plus is like a competitive, if you will, skill when compared to Super Jump. So yeah, now the two of them are a lot more equal, and it's a really nice change overall. The next thing that happened was the turrets got a nerf or baggage got a nerf, just depending on how you look at it. But yeah, so you can no longer reload turrets. It's probably a good change overall. I think Rob Cantrell has done a really great job of explaining why being able to deploy turrets every single turn is kind of a bad thing for the game because, as he puts it, it builds a defensive debt. Um, and I think that the change, while makes it does make me a little bit sad, I think it's definitely a good change because, yeah, it keeps you from just spamming out turrets and creating like this death zone where your opponent can't even move out of their deployment zone because they're going to be shot by like five turrets. So, yeah, for that reason, I think it's probably a pretty good change. Um, Something very interesting was that stealth ops was added to the ITS rules. If you don't know, stealth ops basically allows you to choose a trooper who's not a tag or remote or a vehicle. And you're allowed to give that unit stealth and a silenced pistol. So on first glance, you might be like, oh, this is a small change, yada, yada, yada. But it actually has some pretty interesting repercussions, specifically for Mendoza. So I think Mendoza um, can utilize this really well because it gives him stealth. It gives him a silenced pistol, which honestly doesn't really matter that much. But um, specifically, the stealth is a huge change for him because now it allows him to move through repeaters without getting hacked. It allows, and especially now that he's a 6-2 mover, he's faster. So I think there's actually a lot of super great yeah, a super great use case there. I mean, you could also throw it on like a Teutonic NCO Spitfire, give them stealth. But I have to double check. I don't know if there's like a restriction on impetuous units, but regardless, yeah, it's just a good change. I think there's going to be good use case for it in ML. So, and then finally we have in deployment and AD. groups are they no longer count for limited insertion. So if you don't know, there's a well, I don't think they call it limited insertion anymore, but basically there's this rule that if you have 10 models, or no, not 10 models, 10 orders, so it's like tactical awareness plus irregular orders plus irregular orders, if all of that comes out to equal to 10, your opponent can only strip one order from your combat group. So, yeah, it's not an incredibly strong rule, but I think it has some interesting application, specifically in military orders where I myself really like to take 2 to 3 Trinitarian snipers. And if you're taking 3 hidden deployment models, it's actually not that hard to create a 10 order list, specifically in your first combat group. So yeah, I think there might be an interesting use case here for that. I'd have to test it out to see like if it's any good, but I'm gonna put a tab on that and I'll probably report back soon on whether or not I think it's a good rule. Oh, sorry. One more rules update that I forgot to write down. I don't think it has a huge impact on military orders, but they changed speedball. They specifically changed the Beta one, the structure one, and then the one that allows you to clear states. So now all of these can only be used on another trooper, not on the trooper who, not on the trooper who has the speedball. So why is this a big deal? Well, um, again, I don't really think it affects military orders that much. Like the only unit I can really think of that it would affect are like tags and then Mendoza. Because all of your other units are probably going to be in a like Harris team or something. And so in that case, like it doesn't really matter if you can't um yeah, if you can't use the speedball on yourself because you can just have somebody else use it. But at the same time, it does like force you to kind of waste another order, and I think there's yeah, it was a good change overall. A lot of solo pieces like Norkius were just like dropping speedball on themselves and then running through your deployment zone and just not even caring if they take a wound because they could just heal it back up. So overall, I think it's a really good change. Anyway, continuing on. So now we have my revised tier list. I highlighted sort of highlighted some units to show where I think they land now. So yeah, I think Mendoza and Deferson are a lot better. I think I had originally put them both in B tier, and now they're in A tier. Um, I really do have to test out Mendoza more. I have tried Deferson, and I think he is definitely an A tier unit at this point. He might even be better. I'm gonna have to like use him a lot more just to get like a good feeling of him. But such a flexible unit. He's a wild card, so he goes into a lot of links really well. And he just has a lot to offer the faction in terms of like a hacking device with KHD, good whip, good BTS, just overall really solid unit, a really good like toolbox unit. And Mendoza, I haven't been able to try out since the changes, but my guess is that he's actually going to be an A tier unit because his solo piece capability has really been brought out by the changes. So him having access to stealth now, him being able to 6-2 move, yeah, honestly, just a super great package there. And he was a unit that's always been good, like at least in terms of like stat block, right? Like he's got mimetism, he's got good BS, he's got a solid uh, weapon, and he also has continuous damage. So like, what's not to love there? But at the same time, he just lacked like mobility, he lacked stealth, and he just had a hard time like dealing with really good hacking factions. But now I think yeah, there's definitely something to be said for how he's going to perform in the future. And then I did move 3 profiles down. So I moved the curator down, I moved Dart down, and then I moved the Mulebot down. So first off, the curator is a little bit worse. Definitely still a really solid unit. It's just that not being able to refill the armed turret is definitely a nerf there. And I think it's going to be a little bit more of a choice to bring the base profile versus the turret profile. I still think I'd probably take the turret profile like every game. But yeah, it's still it's still a little bit of a nerf. So I think for that reason, the curator's probably falling more into B tier now. Dart I've used a little bit more since I last dropped my tier list, and I think she is definitely not as good as she used to be. Um, just more competition, really. Like there, a lot of the knights are expensive, and I'm wanting to take them more than Dart just because they offer more capability. She's still good. She still does things. So like, don't get me wrong, she's still a very solid unit. I just think that yeah, she's a little bit worse than I had originally anticipated. The mule bot is just put down a notch because really the biggest reason I was taking the mule bot was to refill the curator, and if I can't refill the curator, there's not as much use case for the mule bot. Now, like really, the use of the mule bot comes down to refilling disco balls, refilling uh, mines, and then just being like a cheap order, really. So yeah, for that reason, it's probably more of like a B tier unit now. And then finally the last change I made to my tier list was I moved the Knight of Montesa up. I've used the Knight of Montesa a little bit more since the last time I made this tier list, and I think it's actually better than I was originally giving it credit for. I don't think it's like an outstanding unit, but I think it's definitely a unit that has like some niche use case. Um, Honestly, it might even deserve to go into B. I need to play with it more, really. Like there are a lot of military orders players who think it's a very good profile still. I just personally used to take it as like an armory unit, and it just doesn't have that use anymore because it can't dismount. So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of biased. I never really liked motorcycles to begin with, so that's like my bias showing. I just don't really like playing with big bases, unless it's like a tag. But yeah, it's probably better than I'm giving it credit for. So, just last thing to note. Yeah, but overall, these are kind of the changes I've made. I think military orders is definitely sitting in a really great spot. There's still things that need to be happened. I've said it over and over again, but the Knight Hospitaller and the Knight of Justice definitely need some changes to make them a little bit more interesting. But aside from that, yeah, overall, great changes from CB. I'm so happy to see them be like involved in the community, be involved in like rules changes and updating profiles. Honestly, just yeah, it brings me so much joy because in N4 they didn't really update the game that much, but here we are in N5 and within 2 months they've made two very significant changes to Army and to the rules. So yeah, very happy to see that, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the new format. Let me know if you like me just ranting next to a list or if you like the PowerPoint. So hope everybody has a good day, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.